right, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody on the inside so far. Um, yeah, there's your boy Anthony Christelike. So yeah, we here on the inside. Share the live, invite some other persons, along with one of my buddies of mine, Ansel James. We he wanted to host a discussion on specifically racism and the church in Trinidad and Tobago. All right, so the idea is talking about racism and the church in Trinidad and Tobago. We have a few things that we want to look at this morning. So, but before we jump into it, the discussion is an open one, so we want you to do something, begin sharing the live, invite persons, let them come on the inside. We'd like to get your questions, your input, your comments as part of the mix. All right, and we also have waiting on a couple of the other persons to do some join on the inside with us this morning. We're supposed to be having, I think, Avenel is supposed to be on the inside with us. Avenel Hector Joseph, that is. One of my brothers, Renard Rollins. One of the guys that I've been seeing that have been very, very vocal on racism, spiraling out of what has been happening in the U.S. And he has been sharing his opinions and views and stuff on it, and educating persons as well on the topic. So yeah, so share the live, invite persons, and yeah, we're gonna do some. Let's play a little more music in the meantime as we allow persons to start coming on the live. Right, so share it around, get persons on the inside.
Yeah. Super. Hey.
Father, me give you thanks and praise for life. May you give me real chances. Give me the right. Cause this life not easy. I make my mistakes. Please forgive me. I'm learning, please believe me. I do whatever it takes. Them cannot get me now. Never gonna get me now. I know I don't deserve it, not at all. Grace for a lifetime, looking at me heart go deeper than the surface. Yours for a lifetime, don't fake the actions, no, not about the lip service. I know you're worth it, nothing could I ever take your place. You are the one on my side, look at my face, amazing grace, me I feel. Some friends gone in an instant, they didn't wanna go the distance. They turn their back when they think it's a rap, so start to give a brother resistance. You never let me go. You hear my cry, Father, you let me know. I am your child, it still hurts, but life's not easy. I make my mistakes. Please forgive me. I'm learning, please believe me. I do whatever it takes. Them cannot get me now, never gonna get me now. I know I did enough. My life I give it up. They will remind you of the things that you did, but I'm never giving up. I'm forgiven. No, I don't want nothing less than. You hate this, but what the X done? You make the picture so clear. Don't need no caption or text on. Some friends gone in an instant. They didn't wanna go the distance. They turn their back when they think it's a rap, so start to give a brother resistance. You never let me go. You hear my cry, Father, you let me know. I am your child, it's still critical.
Now up time. She bad mind. Now up time. Lord, you bless me. So me skim over bad mind like jet ski. And though they meant me, you make it way bad man just like jet ski. Now it's time with them. My praise Christ the King. Now it's time with them. Me have no time for bad mind. This is the revelation of the century. How you gonna make people live in your mind rent free? So me sit back and me take time and me analyze my inventory. They never put roof on me head. They never put shoes on my feet. They never put money in a pocket. They never give no food to eat. So me not take the man. Me not take the man now. So me not take the man. Them words like water band dumb back. Lord, you bless me, so me skim over bad mind like jet ski. And though them envy, you me kick way bad mind just like jet ski. Now it's time with them. My praise Christ the King. Now it's time with them. Me have no time for bad man, so me no cater. What comes out of the mouth of a hater? Them dirty bad mind me I go pray for. Them forget that winning in my blood is a part of me nature. Well you know how the thing go. Them spread rumor and them false info. But the most time watch over me. The same way when you look down on your big toe. So me no take the man. Me no take the man up. So me no take the man. Them words like water van dog back. Lord, you bless me, so me skim over bad mind like jet ski. And though them envy, you me kick way bad mind just like jet ski. Now it's time with them. Me praise Christ the King. Now it's time with them.
Deep loving life is a journey. Things now worry me. In my time, in a fumble when life runs dry. And in my time, in a grumble when things trouble I. Say man a warrior, me can't lose. In the darkest, so I still Christ me a choose. Me no worry about when tides are high. Me not deal with commotion. Trod me a trod when me light turn green. Come me know that promotion come from God when your heart is a clean. Them look for me and them a see me smile. And them a check on we go we life it a worthwhile. Now know me story carried me fine. Life is a journey. You got to make it worthwhile. But in my time in a fumble when life runs dry. And in my time in a grumble when things trouble I. Say man a warrior, me can't lose. In the darkest, so I still Christ me a choose. Me no worry about when tides are high. Remember when me did a suffer. Eat dry bread with no butter. Mama say it's gonna be okay. R.I.P. guide and cover. Jehovah, him and me umbrella. Till today, me a fast and pray. Cause life's so real. Life's so real. But in my time in a fumble when life runs dry. And in my time in a grumble when things trouble I. Say man a fighter, me can't lose. In the darkest, so I still Christ me a choose. Me no worry about when tides are high.
This one is for the winners. Well, I know my father, Jehovah, and I know my DNA. Tell them every single W up in a day. I'm raising my W high. Every word from Satan is a lie. Oh, I'm a winner. Oh, yeah. I'm a winner. Oh, yeah. I used to feel defeated. Then I remember my father is seated in high places. All your negative, keep it. I know better than to listen chat about how me now make it. Blessings fall upon me like rainy weather. Just when the haters think it's over, there comes another. From the valley to the mountain top. Once I have life, no me not give up. Plus God give me the power to defeat my foe, that deceitful liar. I'm raising my W high. Every word from Satan is a lie. Oh, I'm a winner. Oh, yeah. I'm a winner. Oh, yes. We not to trample on people, never. And they never go trade good for evil. Embracing God's rule, understanding your attitude, determine your altitude. So like a button I will press, and me not settle for less. Perseverance and diligence, surely need it for the quest, yes. From the valley to the mountain top, once I have life, no me not give up. Plus God give me the power to defeat my foe, that deceitful liar. I'm raising my W high. Every word from Satan is a lie. Oh, I'm a winner. Oh, yeah.
put it right up.
Right up.
Put it right up.
Right up.
Higher, higher.
Every winner let me see it double.
Put it right up. Put it right up. Higher, higher.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Again.
Yeah, morning.
Morning.
Welcome, Crystal. Welcome, Marlies. I haven't seen the other persons and them as yet join us. So but I guess we did say 10, so let's see what we could, I guess we could kick things off. We have a few persons on the live on Facebook as well. So again, we just asking you all if you all could just probably just share the live. As I said, the discussion, it's one of the discussion I saw last night. There was a discussion that started as well on the same topic, and I guess it is something that is, having this kind of domino effect on persons because I guess because they're saying that when the US sneeze we just get cold.
Yeah.
So right, but it's a topic that we need to have. The gentleman in orange, that is Anselm James, right? A good brother of mine, and he was the guy that really started the idea behind having this discussion. And I told him, I said, well, yeah, let's have the discussion, let's start it. And so that's how we're here this morning. So again, welcome to Crystal and Marlies. So the first thing that we want to do is just open a quick word of prayer before we jump in. So Father, we thank you for your goodness and your grace. We thank you for your love. We thank you for the opportunity to see yet another day. And we ask, even in our deliberations here this morning, that your spirit will be in the midst of us, guiding us, giving us wisdom where it is needed, and understanding as it is needed, Father. And we place this all into your hands in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
And amen.
Amen.
All right. Cool. So, Anselm, first, let me invite you to probably just share from yourself, your heart. What is the reason? Probably you see the reason why you would have seen the need to have this discussion, and we can take it from there.
Yeah, no problem. Well, first of all, let me excuse the foul and stuff going in the background.
Country life, like country life.
But for me, personally, I just was thinking about it that you hardly hear anything from like the local churches about the issue of race within the churches in Trinidad and Tobago. So I just decided to agitate a little bit, so I made a post about it. But for me, on my heart, it really is that sometimes we speak about we know, most of us, right, thinking Christians know that racism is wrong, but we say it with our mouth, and then sometimes in our heart and in our private spaces and private discourse and so on, we display racism sometimes, right? And so that's what really made me raise the issue. From time to time you may see or hear people saying certain things in more private quarters. They don't normally necessarily say it like in public,
Yeah.
but they would often have like small little whisperings about certain things and about certain groups of people. So that was really what was on my heart, that we say one thing sometimes, and in the back of our hearts, at the depth of our hearts, honestly, I don't think all of us actually mean what we say. So that's why I made the post, actually.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
cool. So let me immediately get Crystal and Marlies here on the inside in this discussion. So ladies, tell me from your position, what do you think in terms of does racism actually exist in the church? I know we're focusing specifically in church, and there's a reason why I want us to look at that specifically. But do we think, from your perspective, do you think that racism exists in the church? So either one of you can go at any time.
Yes, racism does exist in the church. And the reason I've seen it especially for the most part, I feel like Christians would be passive because we or silent on the issue because we go there and we focus on Jesus. And so the relationships that most churches have is that we just go there, we meet up, we worship, we talk about Jesus, we listen to the word, and then we go home. There's no real intimacy or getting to know each other. If you look at Acts, they say, and disciples were together every day and they had everything in common. That does not happen nowadays. So there is no time to see the true hearts of people. And then people basically come from backgrounds where family influence is heavy. So while you may be in transition and being a Christian, racism does exist. It's just more tempered. It's more laying low, right? And I think people just basically now learning, you know, but it stems there. And I see it in the church prevalently around election times. It's something I observed as well, but you know, you figure you are not the person to deal with it. It's not really addressed. I've never heard it in a service. And so I guess as Christians, the church don't really get into our lives deeply enough. So
from that standpoint, okay.
All right.
Christel?
All right, so just to add to what Merle's, that's her name, Merle's?
Yeah, Merle's, yeah.
That's a nice name, by the way. just to add to what she's saying, yes, it is something that I have also seen, racism and classism in the church. If you're of a certain stature, you know, you will see the cliques, you would say, okay, well, God bless you, and that's about it. You don't have that interaction with people on a personal level. You're not actually friends. Like she said, you come to the building, you come to worship, and that's it. It's not said on the pulpit. So in your mind, okay, well, that's their personal work and their personal struggle that they have to deal with. That has nothing to do with me. And you move on, which we really and truly we should not do. And the climate now is ripe for this discussion, this sort of discussion, because it has been something we've seen over the years in different experiences, and we would ignore it. But it really should not be happening. And I agree with her that it is something that is culturally ingrained. That's what you get from your family life. That's what has been passed down all the time. People will tell you what sort of person to marry, what sort of friends to have. You know, they will talk about things like that at home. And they teach that to you and they pass it on. You may pass that on to your children. I want you marrying this type of person. That's what you want. That's the kind of hair your children will have. You know, things like that happen all the time. And we really don't. I think before the last 10 years or so, we would have brushed it off. But because we're seeing, thanks to the, and not just social media, but media and media coverage on the whole, that has increased, and we have been more aware of things that are happening outside of our little box. We realize, hey, you know, we are part of the problem too. But simple things like that have been happening all the time.
Well, if you were on, this will be for everybody, but seeing that we're on with Christel right now. Christel, could you tell me what would you say, or how would you define racism? If you were to give it a definition that you're able to identify it, how would you define racism in your understanding?
When you consider one race or one ethnic group better than the other.
Okay.
So you look down on somebody with certain features, you look down on them with certain genetic makeup, because as far as you're concerned, that's inferior. They didn't do good enough. Well, not them, but their parents didn't do good enough to change that sort of thing.
Okay. Answer them?
Yeah, well, actually, I looked up the top this morning, and I have a definition from Webster, and it says, a belief that a race, a particular race, a belief that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherentity or of a particular race. And so just as Christel had said, is that one person believes that their race is better than the other race. So yeah, that's basically it in a nutshell.
Scott, you have anything different or similar?
No, it would be similar, you know, as any kind of prejudice behavior towards somebody solely because they of a particular race. And it's not new. I just thought of it. It's not new because I remember certain parts of the Bible I was studying, and even some of the disciples were very the way that they would treat the Gentiles, you know.
Yeah.
And it's not something new. The woman by the well understood it when she told Jesus that you know, our people worship here and your people worship there. And when the lady went to get the blessing from Jesus, and I mean his he was different. His one was a test, but I think he kind of understood, at least from my interpretation, that they were thinking that because they're Jews that they're better, you know, and that is why Jesus had to talk about the whole thing about the engrafted branch, you know. And oftentimes I don't think they said racism in the Bible, but if you look at certain things, Jesus had to kind of let them know he came for everybody, because the Jews had this self-righteous way of thinking.
Very clear.
You know, so he had to keep mentioning that to them because he knew. And you know, they would say certain things about non-Jews.
I remember
you
that.
know.
I remember someone was sharing also the experience. I think it was between Paul and Peter.
Paul and Peter.
That differentiation. So I think Peter was with Paul and the Gentiles, and I think they were probably having a meal or somebody sort. And I think when a Jewish sect of persons came, Peter pulled away, and Paul had to rebuke him for it. You know. So based on this, we could outrightly say that racism could possibly and probably does exist in every group of persons. See, that is not just let's say a dominant feature probably in a group that we will consider. So let's say, for example, we wouldn't just say that the whites or white Americans. Let's use it outside. White Americans will be racial people, but Black Americans are not racial people. It exists in both sects. Yeah. All right. So the thing is, we're saying that for a fact that we know that racism it exists in the church. We to a good extent we kind of highlighting the fact that the church probably isn't addressing it. Marilee said she'd never heard it. I think Crystal didn't say that, didn't indicate whether she heard it or have seen it being addressed. I don't know, ask them. So I know, have you all ever seen that topic being spoken of, addressed in any kind of way? Answer them, Crystal. In your circles, in your fellowship, you know, around believers of any sort.
It's a good question, and actually, I would have to stretch my mind real far, and I've gone to church all my life. 30 something years. I had to really stretch my mind to remember a time when that issue would have been like directly addressed. So I would say no, I haven't heard that issue directly face on face address. Probably a pastor might make one liner, you know, but to say like to preach or teach on racism and how we ought to treat with it. No, I've never heard. No.
What about you, Crystal?
I can't recall, and like Anselm said, it may have been mentioned in passing, but to say that there's an entire session focused on dealing with this, I really can't recall anything like that.
Do we think that the reason? Let me not give you suggestion just yet. But why do we think that is so? Why do we think that is something that that is probably being avoided by leadership or the church? Because I don't want to just put leadership alone, but the members as well, because it's a discussion that could take place amongst members. So about the body too. Why do we think that is possibly being avoided by the church?
For fear of offending people, that some people may think like you're targeting me and my ways and my thoughts and how I was raised, and they may want to leave the membership. I don't have to take this, and you know, they go on.
Okay.
I think it depends on what the pastor look like to some degree. So if he's more Afro-Trinidadian, he might want to appear prejudiced, you know, and if he's Indo-Trinidadian, same way, he might want to feel like he attacking either which way. And that's one. And two, I think that because Trinidad is the way it is, things like this don't really surface. We have a good Trinidadians have a good We are brilliant actors. We have a good way of knowing when to
So what
speak.
theater industry is supposed to be rich then? I don't understand.
I think we know when to say and what to say.
Yeah.
And it's often in the confines of one home. So from what I observe, well, from what going on Facebook, you would find, oh God, I don't want to offend nobody, but the Indos in particular.
No, say what I say because it had to be said, anything. That's why we having this discussion. There are things that needs to be said, man. Don't be afraid.
Right. I find the Indo Trinidadians don't class themselves as black. So they kind of pull away from certain situations that are termed, black issues.
Right.
And I find they are the ones who more expressive with saying racial things.
Right.
Now I know I have heard racial slurs from Christian Afros in a technical way.
Mm-hmm.
In a technical way, it would come about like country Indian women do that. I've heard myself saying it too because I've heard it often.
Okay,
And is something that shouldn't be said, but I think Trinidadians have a good way of masking their feelings, and they will say it probably in their homes, but they will not be as blatant as probably the first world countries are.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why probably the church don't recognize it as a problem, a burden problem, and so it just probably passed their mind.
Okay, that's them.
Yeah, well, I believe that as well. What the last point that was made, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Some people they fool themselves into believing that everything is okay. They probably, I don't know, they probably stand in the mirror in the morning and say everything is good, everything is fine. I don't have I don't have to address this issue.
Yeah.
So yeah, I believe that they don't see it as a big problem. So why address it? And then it's such a touchy topic. Again, it was said before, but why would you rock the boat? I mean, everybody's having church and everybody's nice and happy. Why address it? It might cause some conflict to arise. So I think that's how it is.
Okay, let me just I know we have some persons on the Facebook Live. Welcome, guys. I'm seeing Kim. I'm seeing Marlon Roberts. I saw Marlon Bailey earlier on as well. Welcome to you all. So we're inviting you all. Please share the live as well. But we also welcome your comments and your contributions as well to the topic. We're talking racism and the church, and we're focusing primarily on Trinidad and Tobago. For today, for now, right? We know the church is bigger than Trinidad and Tobago, but we cannot dwell on Trinidad and Tobago. All right, guys. So one of the things that you all have alluded to is that the church definitely seems to be avoiding the topic, and there may be reasons, and I don't even want to say justified because I don't think a topic like that could be justified as something to avoid. Even if it is that it's not addressed in a sermon form where a minister preaches it, but it is something that the church could probably collectively have as a discussion amongst themselves and address the issue. Now, Marilee said something very, very important in terms of when we see this happening, and I've seen it myself, and it's usually around election time, not just around politics, but specifically around election time. Where you actually, and it's so sad, some persons actually make it almost clear that I am voting for this particular party or for this particular person, not because they have indicated anything that positive that they're really going to do, but just because of their race. Right? I have seen it, and it is very unfortunate that that is the case. Now, let's look at the leaders. If it is that a leader around election time sees that there are little things being said, sometimes in comical form, again, because rightly so, we do find these little ways just to make a joke of it, but this is sometimes not all skin teeth in a smile, right? If a leader if a leader picks up or is hearing little statements and stuff, should a leader of a church address an issue, the issue at that particular time? Should it be addressed? Do we see that the leader should address it maybe at that particular time, or should they wait and address it sometime later? What do we think about that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Personally, I've you know, so I think that they should address it at the time when the issue is happening. It kind of would sink in a little more, but I think they should make it like, something that, regularly to be addressed. Now some people would say, well, my church is mainly predominantly Afro or predominantly in Indo Trinidadian, so I don't have to address the issue. They don't feel the weight of having to address the issue. Some people would say, well, there are more important issues like end time issues to be addressed, right? I've heard that, I've seen that, people saying, let's address end time issues. Let's not focus on this Black Lives Matter and all this racism thing. Jesus is coming soon, all right? But I mean, while he's coming, we're still living here together.
Yeah.
And while he's coming, some of us, we still have, these prejudice in our hearts, and if he comes and he meets us with the prejudice in our heart, then we're going to be in some problem. So I think that it has to be addressed, honestly, and it should be addressed. Somebody has to be brave enough. Some leaders have to be brave enough to say, hey, I will directly address this issue. All right, this is our stance as an organization on this particular issue. All right, because I haven't seen, probably I ain't looking good enough, but I haven't seen much church organizations in Trinidad and Tobago saying this is our stance on racism, etc. Making it publicly known that we don't tolerate racism, etc.
Yeah.
Even as a start. All right, I haven't even seen that. So yeah, they have to, they must, if they're interested and also if they're interested also in winning people over, because people see the church as not important and less so today. Because if we're not addressing important issues that are affecting us now, then we're not irrelevant then.
Yeah.
And a lot of people laugh at the church because of that. We don't address relevant issues that affect us like now, right? So yeah, I'm done there.
Maryline's, Crystal.
I think the problem it should definitely be addressed one time. And the reason why sometimes things are put on a back burner again is the definition of church, right? People feel church is just a slight outing on a particular day, right? And again, it comes to the restructuring of how we think what church is, because we call each other brother and sister, and that is just about it. It has a very kind of work relationship, just how you get up in the morning and you go to work and come back home.
Yeah.
That's church nowadays, and it's not it. We have strayed from how it is, and people don't want to address certain issues. Certain leaders don't have the know-how on how to resolve conflict. Right. So it's basically, I don't want to offend anybody, sow a seed, come take communion. What is communion? We don't know why Christ did certain things. It's just ritual now.
Yeah.
Right? And we don't realize communion was actually a meal that they were sharing. And we don't know things like that. And we have strayed. And so therefore, they can't have a relationship with certain members and talk about racism in some points because of the fact that a lot of the leaders are not trained to deal with things like that. They don't want to accept that probably things like that exist, right? And I always say, as Crystal was saying, it starts also racism and classes are very much so tied, because you find probably where the pastors and they stand is probably so high up that they don't know what goes on the ground. And there's not a proper management to know what goes on the ground. Because I remember being part of a church and they wouldn't tell me anything because they figure teachers have this particular false prestige or whatever. But I've seen certain treatment of others, and it never reached anywhere. It reached to the same person who was meting it out, that same person had to actually deal with it. So there are no measures in place to deal with that. But definitely it should be dealt with one time. There is no real forum, just as how I would correct my children and you would probably correct yours one time. You wouldn't wait on a time. The church structure is the problem, I think.
Christel, anything to add on that?
So I totally agree with what they both said. The church really should not be overlooking important issues. The church is supposed to be a safe haven and also a place where you can be guided in the right manner according to what you should be doing. So if we sweep, okay, this has nothing to do with church, that's the world, and we keep sweeping these things aside or under the rug, we're gonna not we need to address it. People are going to be confused as to, does this affect me? No, I'm a Christian, so Black Lives Matter has nothing to do with me, which is wrong.
Yeah.
It has something to do with everybody. We are all affected by these things. So we have to have churches now where you, like Marilee said, it's not just about sowing a seed and coming to have communion when you've lost the meaning behind these things. Correct, she's very correct. It is tradition now. It's just like a ritual. You come, you have communion, you go. What are you doing it for? What was the purpose of it in the first place? Do you know what you are reenacting? And do you know at all? Do you have any idea what's being done? We have churches right now that are all over the world. I'm not just talking about Trinidad. We have churches that have been set up for commerce. They're strictly a money-making venture. Has nothing to do with saving souls, has nothing to do with guiding people in the right direction, nothing like that. It's all about how much money. So a lot of these churches, they only have people of a certain stature in the membership. And we have been trying to mimic that here. We have churches here that do that, where you have to be of a certain job specification to even walk through the doors. Where do you work? Where do you drive? Things like that. That's not the focus of the church, and you are not the church.
Yeah.
You're playing the church. And the church needs to focus on issues that affect everybody, that affect our livelihoods, that affect that, because all of these things can also affect our freedom to worship.
Yeah. Yep.
Because whatever happens outside there, it's going to filter down to us. Some changes may be made, some legislation may come into place. We also need to have a voice. So we need to be very aware of what's going on. We need to be informed. Leaders, they need to inform their members, because there are lots of people who do not rely on getting information on their own. Like it was rightly said, especially around election times, that's why things are so heated and so tribal, because you just wait, this is the person I'm supporting, that's what they say, so that's it.
Yeah.
You don't want to look things up yourself, you don't want to know anything else but what they say. So we need guidance by people who are not I shouldn't just say qualified, it's not a matter of qualification, but it's who are called to be leaders. Yeah. They have a calling, so they know what they are doing. It's really in their hearts to guide you and teach you and direct you. But we don't have that right now. We really do have lots of buildings that are making money.
I think that there are leaders who may be struggling with this themselves. This is my personal belief. I think that maybe one of the reasons why they do not want to address the issue, it could possibly be that they're struggling with it themselves. And then there are also those who probably just don't know how, for whatever the reason may be. I know of leaders who really don't think that there are the things that are happening in the society and outside of the church world is an issue to be addressed within the church world. So they somewhat kind of almost create like a disconnect between the church and the society, right? Which to me is a bit crazy, because if we are to be impacting the society, we need to be aware of what are the ills in the society, right? In order to be relevant and to know to strategize and how to address issues. Now, in the church, we're talking about the fact that we have clearly there has been some misconceptions now that have formulated almost doctrinal approaches to how we run church. And that being the case, where does the idea of us becoming one, and Marisa talked about it earlier on in the discussion, she made mention of the fact of us all being one. How come leaders are not seeing that when we have racial issues in the society, right? And whether we want to agree with it or not, it is going to filter into the church, because things around us find their way into our system. All right, that is very evident. We have so many examples of that. So why can't some leaders see that if it is that we have persons that are either struggling with racial issues or racism, um, that they are not willing to address it? Because for me, I think that when you address some of these things, it helps to create that cohesive oneness that you want within the church, right? I know of pastors that without reservation tell you who they're voting for and telling you who you should be voting for. I am telling you this, this is what I
Yeah,
know.
yeah. But
They
I
have
think
it,
all of us would have
right?
would have experienced that
Right?
actually.
Now, another thing to that is this. There are situations where there are religious bodies, right? When I say I'm talking about the church, yeah, there are religious sections of this body that when they are addressing or when they plan to do work in a particular community. So let's say, for example, if there's a church to be established in Shogunas, they will literally send an East Indian pastor, or they will look for an East Indian pastor to send there for him to do the work. What are our views, or let's say, for example, if it's a predominantly African community or village, they will send an African pastor, right? There's something else I want to talk on outside of these two groups, right? But do we see this as wrong? Do we see this as the right way to approach vandalism? Do we think that's a good strategy? What are our thoughts on that?
Well, uh, personally, I think that that's not the right approach. Now, some people is gonna argue that well, that's the best way to reach them if you go with somebody who they could identify with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, African in an African community, East Indian person, East Indian community. So they would say, well, yeah, they would identify, better with those persons. But for me personally, I think is first of all, the calling of God on a person's life, over all the other things. And so if God lead that particular person, and of course put whatever on the leader's heart for that person to be installed in a church in whatever area that they should be installed in that church, whether you be African, Indian, Chinese, Trinidadian, or whether you're even not even from Trinidad, if God lead in that particular way, then yeah, you had to install the person in that position. So using the race to say I would install this person in this particular place because they are of this particular race. Now, of course, they're not going to come out in the public and say, yeah, we install them there because it's a
Yeah,
predominantly African.
yeah,
They're not
yeah.
going to come out and say that in the public, but
Yeah.
behind closed doors, they're going to discuss, well, have a lot of XYZ people there, so better we put him there because he'll be able to reach them better, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think the discussion should be that. The discussion should be as the Bible would have put it. Is he a man of good standing and etc. Does he fulfill those qualities, and is God leading him and calling him to that particular ministry? I think that should be the first thing that you should look at. Racism should never be, or the person race, sorry, should never be, in my opinion, and based on the word of God as well, it should never be that one thing to install the person there. Yeah, that's my views.
Okay.
No, I think I could see some merit in it, though it be not righteous, because of the fact that, remember where we stem from, nobody was birthed into righteousness. And so people still carnal for most part. So I could see the logic behind it, though it be not spiritual at first, because I remember the analogy Christ gave where some people still on milk and they should be eating meat by now. So you have people in the church 20-something, 30-something years who still stuck in values because the church does not address it now. I could see the merit in it, especially in certain areas where they may not gravitate towards either Afro or Indo person probably leading because of what they were taught. And remember, where we first learn hypocrisy, where we first learn sin, where we first learn unrighteousness. People like to say, you going to church and you doing that, but where we learn it from? We learn it from the parent, that is the world, because you remember Jesus telling them, you have your father, the devil. Now, before you come to Christ, Satan is our father before we come to Christ. It's hard teaching, but that is what it is.
Yeah, that
right?
is
But
yeah.
so I think people who are not ready yet, it might be a logical thing to do. You know what the Bible talk about? The sin is not eating foods offered up to idols. The sin is when your brother struggle with it. So it's a love issue. I figure if you're winning souls and stuff, and you have to be wise, if that is what people will respond to, then yes, until we teach them to put away that old man. You understand? Because it have some things that, this is what I believe, it have some things that are not readily or not easily parted with. You understand? And so you can't just, when somebody come in,
like a thing that we grew up with, and it's hard to just shift some stuff mentally.
Yes. So you have to kind of show them, and you have to probably, if it will, use the right person to fit their model until they learn that that is wrong. You know? So I could see the merit in it is not right, but if you're dealing with Christians who are new or people who you're trying to reach out to, right, to offer them that salvation until they reach maturity, then you could, you know, I guess.
All right.
So I disagree. I disagree because I think that if you are appointed, you have an appointment to go somewhere, it's for a reason, and it's for a reason, and you can be successful there. You don't have to be of a particular race. I think that that is us trying to do our own thing, our own version of it. We think this is what God should have said. We think that this is what he meant. He said that you're appointed, you know, but not now. In 5 years, you'll go there. Let's send somebody else first. Let them get accustomed to that person first. So I don't agree that we need to spoon feed to save souls, because it has to be, we have to follow the purpose that was given. We have to be obedient. So if the call is for a particular person to be placed in this church, we shouldn't take it upon ourselves to say, well, they don't really look like him, so let's delay it for a little bit. I don't think that's our call. I think that if God has ordained something, then we need to let it happen. I also so sorry, I keep writing while you're talking.
Yeah, no problem.
So leading to that, I don't think that there are actually discussions about who should go. I think people, because we are accustomed to doing things a certain way, we're accustomed that this demographic needs this type of leader, this demographic needs that type of leader, that we automatically put people in these positions. We don't sit down and discuss it and say, well, it should, because it's not about the physical. It should not be about the physical. It should not be what they look like. Yes, we know people relate to people who look like them and who sound like them. But when we do that, we continue the psyche of, you need to stay within one group. We're really not allowing for expansion and acceptance of other races. I think we are playing into that. That's how it's being passed down. You need to go to the type of school only. You can't go to those types of school rather than it's just a school. So the cycle continues, because they're going to internalize that, okay, my pastor has to look like me. This is what I'm accustomed worshiping in a place like this with these sorts of people only. And we pass it on to our children instead of saying, okay, well, God called me and he told me that I need to go into Calcutta. And somebody like, you think they will take you and they'll accept you there? And I'm like, yes, that's my calling. And I go because if God has planned it, if God has ordained it, it will come to pass.
Let me joke. There was a comment question from Facebook. So the question was, Marilee, isn't that telling them that we will do wrong with you until you get it? So the person, based on what you were saying, they're asking if it is that if that will be saying that for now we will just do this way until you get it. They're asking that. So
no, I'm kind of speaking from experience, from being in a church. I hold no leadership there, but from being in a past church, I've seen where is a very, very famous church, and the pastors changed. They were so accustomed to norm, and I didn't say I agree with it. I said that I see the merit in it.
Yeah.
Right?
No problem.
From a very, very popular church in Arima. The pastor, I think he had resigned or retired or something like that. And another pastor came about and the church fell apart.
Yeah.
Right? So I was listening to them, and they it's not a matter of, you know, what the person said, encouraging them until.
No, let's say if it is that doing based on working with that as a strategy, then right, is that telling them that we will do wrong with you until you get it subliminally, not like you're outrightly saying that to them, but you know. Yeah.
I don't know if it's like do wrong. Some people don't know that they're exhibiting racism. I think it's just almost like seeing them and not kind of making them kind of comfortable to accept certain things until they are able to be taught. So like in the other church, they did not want this particular pastor. I don't know why, if it was because he was from a different church before and came to be the new leadership there. And it's kind of out of norm, you know, out of your comfort zone. And so that the church, it hit the church kind of hard. And then they had to kind of come back in and thing. I saw that for myself, right? So I was kind of like saying, like, I see the merit in probably making people comfortable until, I don't know.
Okay.
I understand what Crystal's saying, you know, but people though, I don't think people who bred in racism and how the church handling it, I don't think that is an easy task. You know, people bred in their ways and stuff like that, especially the older generation.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like they're just not open sometimes to the change. And you know, it's a whole set of teaching that we have to go through, a whole set of unlearning and relearning.
Yeah.
That it is. But I get what they're saying with if you are appointed and no man could stop the will of it. But I'm just saying, you know, I could see the merit in it.
And then now we've been talking about we've been kind of making reference most of the time to Afro and Indo Trinidadians, but I think something that, I mean, thinking about it now, that I mean, I know that the population of Chinese, Syrians, Portuguese, and other groups are maybe in the minority in Trinidad and Tobago to that extent, somewhat. But do we actually think about them? Do we think that the church actually seeks to reach out to these groups of persons in our evangelism thrust, in our approach to society? Crystal, we'll start with you. Your thoughts. Do we think that we actually have these persons in mind when we approach evangelism or into the community or the society as a whole?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so, because as stated before, we basically see two races in this country. The others are just by the way. If they happen to come, they come, but I don't think that's the focus.
Yeah.
Or that's the goal when we evangelize.
Oh, okay. Marlies? Because I know you are kind of color.
I have not seen any church explain what evangelism really is. It's a cute term to use, I think, but I don't know if we know how it is to do it. You know, because we try to do things in such a general way. I don't think we target for true love of evangelism, and so we basically don't make it a lifestyle. I was in a church. I don't know if I should name the church before as a youth, but I learned more there than any other church I learned as an adult. And evangelism was a lifestyle, right? And you're in a maxi. I remember it was very new to me. I was Catholic before. And you're in a maxi and they were like, okay, you're in the maxi. Did you reach out to anybody? And you're walking down the road. Did you reach out to anybody? And you're eating in a restaurant. Did you reach out to anybody? I think for the most part, we like to make things structural. And we need to have things a certain way. Nothing is pure lifestyle and nothing is just for the love of Christ and to walk as free as he did and just do things out of passion. I think everything is structure and everything must be micromanaged. And so we lose it. So therefore, in saying that we don't really have a set target. I think we, in our own minds, we do as humans make that kind of decision. All right, I won't ask this person, but I will ask this one.
Right.
Because we do have an idea that the Chinese and the Syrians hold a kind of powerhouse, in my opinion, a powerhouse esteem,
Right.
and they're elitists. And so clearly in our mind, they probably don't need Jesus. But I don't think I've seen any church I've been to, and I've been through quite a lot. I don't think I've seen any church actually made evangelism their lifestyle. And so obviously we will, figure we don't need to involve the Chinese and the Syrians. We just stick with what we know.
Right. Before I go to your answer, maybe let's welcome Mr. Avanel, Hector, Joseph. Avanel, I'm saying next. Anyway, you always
Yeah,
looking at
me.
yeah, let me unmute your mic. Yeah. Talk again. Your mic on now? No, I ain't hearing you now. Keep your audio connected to this Zoom. She's not techie, so she's excuse her, but yeah, I think it's just something with your audio connection. All right. To your bottom left, you usually have a little white check boxes come up over the mic. And let's tap that, and it will connect your audio. I said mute no. Nah, still I hear you.
She not clicking the box. You have to tell her.
Yeah. Yeah. So Avanel, in on the bottom left of your device on the Zoom screen, there's supposed to be a little white box that asks you to tap on that for your audio to connect. Actually tapping on the mic.
Tell her the little cartoon bubble. See if that will help.
You see that cartoon bubble on the screen? Have a little cartoon bubble be on the bottom left, asking to connect the audio. All right, so let's check for. So in the meantime, let's take Anselm comment on the topic in the meantime.
So I would say I've seen one church. Well, since we're not doing names, but I've seen one church that that actually reached out to that particular community in Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah, I've seen one church in Trinidad and Tobago that reached out to those communities actually. But it would be nice to see more people and more churches reaching out to those communities. I've even seen, now I see some churches trying to incorporate like a Spanish service into their service. So it's not all bad. Thank God for some changes, but I have seen some churches reaching out. One church I've seen reaching out to those communities. So yeah.
All right. Well, Avanel, where we at right now, Avanel says she go to the gathering place, she calls it. So Avanel, where we at right now in terms of the discussion, we were just highlighting the fact we at an hour. I know we didn't plan to go too beyond this, but I'm glad. I'm hoping. I'm really hoping Avi could get that audio card. I would like to get her input. Avanel has been somebody that has just been in the community generally. In the community, sorry. Yeah. So she has been interfacing with persons of all ethnic groups, helping them in a lot of different ways and stuff. So I really wanted to get her input in terms of the church and maybe its responsibility in terms of addressing the issue of racism. Now, guys, one of the things that we've been talking about racism. I want to ask this question: is racism a sin? If it's a sin, how do we identify it as a sin?
Who's going first? I'll go first. Is racism a sin? Yeah, of course. And like I said, I mean, most of us gonna agree as most right thinking Christian would agree that yeah, racism is a sin. And of course it was addressed in the Bible. I mean, like I shared with you, Anthony.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus dealt with it. I mean, the woman of Samaria, that account, as well as the parable of the Good Samaritan. Jesus specifically made the Good Samaritan, who was hated, Samaritans was hated. He made him the star of the story, you know. And Jesus did deal with it. Is it a sin? Yeah, of course it is a sin, because like I said, Jesus dealt with it. And of course, Jesus came for every race, every creed, every color. Jesus came for everyone. So as long as you're displaying that type of behavior where you're treating somebody different from somebody else based on whatever, then of course it's a sin, you know, because we ought to share and treat each one as the same, you know. So yeah, yes, it is a sin.
Avila, let me see if your audio is inside. Let's check
You hear me now?
Right, yes, man.
Yeah, we
No,
hear you.
I use my phone because
Alright.
gone and I don't know how to use the laptop. Sorry, I haven't used a laptop. He just gave me one and I don't know how to use it. So I missed the first part of the discussion. So if you tell me how much minutes I can have to just kind of give a synopsis of my thoughts in terms of this whole racism in the church.
Yeah.
So I can guide it. I don't over. It's 11:05 on my time.
All right. So what we'll do, let me get Marily's and Crystal's thoughts on that particular question, which is racism a sin, and how do we identify it as a sin, and then I will come to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to go in the flow. Thanks.
All right. Go ahead, Crystal, Marily, whichever one was going just now.
I think racism is a sin, and it's blatantly hate. You know, Jesus always come talking love, love, love. So I feel if it has to be a sin, it is, because it means that you're hating somebody based on, well, hate in any form is wrong, because according to Jesus, if somebody slap you on one cheek, turn the other cheek, if they ask you to walk 1 mile, walk 5, I mean, he's just trying to show basically that you extend yourself for love's sake. So racism has to be a sin, and it is a sin because it perpetuates hate. And hate not because somebody has done anything to you. Hate because you don't like how somebody looks or how they were born.
Okay. Crystal?
So I'm in total agreement. It is a sin. And yes, the whole message of Christ, the basis of it was love, to love each other. You know, love is of God. Everyone that loveth is born of God and knoweth God. He that loveth not knoweth not God, because God is love. So if you hate your brother because he looks a certain way, how can you say you love God when you are going against everything that he stands for and everything that we have been told to do, to be, you know, to have that I don't want to say perfect walk, but to have that right walk, that righteous walk. So I am in total agreement. Racism goes against everything that God stands for.
Okay. So Abinel, I'll invite you. This time you can what we've discussed a few things. All right. We spoke about if we believe it, we have identified that racism does exist in the church. We have to a good extent also identified that we believe that the church is not addressing the issue. For various reasons, we feel like they're trying to avoid it. We identified maybe because of fear and a couple other things that that they may be trying to avoid it. So give us an idea. I said because of your exposure, your take on racism in the church as a topic with respect to the church and things.
Okay, so good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Not home. So, and he's on the road driving. So by the time he sees this post, I would have said everything I need to say. That if he was here, he would. We are in denial. First to begin, we all should start as Christians on the basis either we believe that every man is created in the image and likeness of God, or God only created some people in his image and some people in his likeness. One, Bible also says that God has predetermined our habitation, and that to me is the most amazing thing for me. As a person of African descent, where my ancestors came from the motherland Africa, right? I am predominantly, to the best of my knowledge, for the African. There might be some issues along the way, they say, with some slaves, some whatever in between. I've never been able. We're still trying to sort that out. Not to prove that that seems to be.
Yeah.
Christians who need to tell you what their great-great-grandmother is, as if that makes them better than us. But that speaks to a deeper problem that I am not here to address.
Yeah.
So the fact that God has put it in my habitation, and I always joke that maybe based on my technology, my personality, maybe my ancestors should have been dropped off up in Haiti or in Jamaica, because I have a bit of an aggression about me. Right? It's my strength and weakness. So in the church, we like to say what we should say. And what we should say is what God says. But there's something called integrity or an integer, where there's need for a meeting between what we say and how we say. So when we as Christians make comments that the best Indian is a dead Indian, or all them black people children lazy, our heart, as I remember this woman who loved this boy in the church. He was a really nice guy. She thought he was a mother Christian until her East Indian daughter brought home that boy to say she wanted to marry him. All hell break loose. They got married, and now the mommy love the grandchildren now. I tell people, if you're non-racial, you let me know how you would feel when your child brings home someone of another ethnicity and you're comfortable with it. When you can see me as my brother, my sister, not just in church where I hug you and I say I love you, the love of the Lord, but when our families intermix, how we say things, and then how we perceive ourselves. When we make retarded statements, and I make no apologies, things like you have high color and you have good skin. It's a comparative tone. So if you have high color and good hair, the converse of good hair is bad hair. The converse of high flow. What are we saying? What have we echoed over the years? In 2014, now we've mentioned something bad, whether it is against white people from the Africans or white to black, or however you want to do it, to Indian to African. It's wrong. It's demonic. It's biological. It's diabolical. And I always knew racialism in the church was bad. But I remember going up for elections in 2015 with a party that formed an alliance or partnership with the predominantly East Indian party. And I like what Christina said, she detested Gil. And you will be considered having good hair. Yeah, because those who have that good hair, there's a bastion of pride. So people were not really obsessed with, offended not just by the policies, because they didn't really debate anything on the policies except for our stupid political narrative, who thief less, who thief more, which I don't engage in, because thou shalt not thief is across the board, whether you're whatever. Yeah. But they were offended that I, as an African, dared to support the Indian party. And the things that, the vile kind of things that came out of the mouth of otherwise pious people. The Bible says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And that didn't just jump out because in 2015, Abby decided to align herself a particular way. It's because in your heart, it spoke deep to who you are. And yes, we can always post to the East Indians and say how racial they are. And yes, there are a lot of them that are vile, and what speak from the mouth is demonic. But when I see how we respond, I'm saying we ain't backward either. Yeah. And it came from people within the church. I have never speaking primarily to the unsaved, because dogs bark, sinners sin.
Yeah.
We are Christians, and we are called to be to a higher order. And somebody said, "Beloved, let us love one another." I think was answering. And that's critical. Love one another, another, whether you be black, you be white, you be whatever it is. And we begin to address the situation that in our churches, and why it is that a certain percentage of our demographics of our churches, the pastors propagate for a certain government and speak against another government, and vice versa. See, these are conversations that we don't want to have, because they're uncomfortable conversations. But I have worked in media for about 20 years, and I remember sitting down, and I can tell you, when the UNC is in power, or the ULF, I can tell the pastors who are going to come up with a prophetic word against the government. I can tell you when you hear them. It is so pathetic.
Yeah, wow.
And we shouldn't put God in our foolishness and the level of disrespect. We have narratives that we ought to pray for the government, and those narratives only come into a play when a certain government is in power. We know that we should respect authority. Our duplicitiousness must be called up. If when the PNM is in opposition and a particular party is in government, we can then make the accurate statement that we need to pray for the governance of the country, which involves the ruling party and the opposition. How come we don't have that narrative at another time?
Yeah.
What as downright racist as political preference. And I'm saying that if we are saying as Christians,
your video came off.
you see me now? Am back now?
Not yet. We hearing you, but we're not seeing you. I know which one.
You not see me now?
That's one. Let me see.
I'm seeing
you.
You seeing it?
I'm seeing you.
So is it my
You see me?
Is it me?
Yeah, I feel it's on your end.
It's on my end.
But connection probably lagging.
Okay, all right, good.
So anything in our life, it must be governed first by our faith belief. So how I feel about politics, how I feel about race, how I feel about a human being in my interface, everything, it must first be guided by what does God say. Yeah. If you dislike people because of their policies, because of their character, because of their behavior, because of this, and I'm talking about hate, but if you have a preference over them because of things, if it is that the only thing is that you don't like them people, you see that word because you see them people, and we have a word we just say, you see them people, deep on inside, that I am just humbly suggesting that us as Christians, maybe we need to check ourselves and see, well, because if the church cannot lead the way in terms of love and respect for human beings, you know, and you know, I want to end on this point. I've always been fascinated by that, by the love that you have one for the other. Not the amount of titles, not how big your church is, not how anything, how much radio program, TV, Instagram, followers, none of those things, but simply by the love that we have one for the other, Jesus said. Because he knew we would be at this juncture. By this shall all men know that you are my disciples.
I think that is why too certain religious groups don't deal with politics, you know, and they don't encourage their members to deal with politics, and we know who they are. They don't deal with politics at all, and it's because it poses such a...
They don't believe in any kind of social engagement. They don't even stand the national anthem. They have no problem in them. So it's greater than that.
But I think no, there's actually another religious institution too that they don't speak about it at all because of the kind of things that it kind of manifests. Right? It's a church in it's a non-denominational, but maybe that is the reason why, because some people not mature enough to keep their beliefs pure. I don't know.
Yeah, but you know anything I think about that though, in a case like that, Marilise, would we consider that as again hiding from addressing issues? Because it means that if it's gonna fester certain behaviors and cause certain behaviors and actions to surface, by them trying to avoid it, to me I think that it means that we are still also allowing the problem to persist as opposed to actually outrightly addressing it, you know?
That's like putting your head in the sand. Yeah. And the Bible says that when the righteous rule, the people rejoices. So if the righteous people would just withhold their hands and say, we're not, because the country will be governed. There will be a prime minister, there will be leader of the opposition. It's not like if we don't vote or we don't engage in the systems, it won't happen. When the righteous rule, the people rejoice. And so then we have to decide, okay, am I going to step aside all the righteous people and let the wicked rule?
Somebody made a comment on Facebook here. They're alluding, they're saying, what about showing appreciation for Indian culture in the church, just as we do for African, example for dance and Indo gospel music and stuff? So the person is asking, I guess in context that there is also, we see some sort of segregation in that instance as well.
We do.
Yeah.
Because we were taught all things African is zugu zugu boogu boogu.
Yeah.
So we have to get scared.
You know, guys, I want to say thanks. I know I don't want to go to, because I know people have things to get done. But I want to say thanks. I know this could only be just the start. And I was sharing with somebody last night. I said this is just to start the conversation or continue along, because I know some other persons have already started the dialogue. But we wouldn't be able to do so and actually, get so many other aspects of this topic in just an hour or so, right? But I want to say thanks to each one of you all first and foremost. For those of you all on the Facebook Live for joining us also. I believe that we should look to have maybe another part of this discussion, look at some other aspects of it, more of a societal engagement, because I know we kind of focus inwardly as much as possible on the topic. But I really want us to also look at, as a church, how do we not only address the issue in-house, but having addressed the issue in-house, what do we need to do that? And then how do we then now approach the issue on the outside? Do we just talk about it? Do we put up our posts? Do we say God love everybody? So what type of way? Because I believe that the church often is not very strategic in the way that we do things to kind of have the impact that we really want to have.
There's something that I post. There's something that I post on my page. It's the American situation, but it's really good listening to Kirk Franklin talk at 12.
Okay.
So that
I think I heard somebody had mentioned that.
everybody should see it.
Okay.
I'll try some of you not on you to share it along, but it's powerful. Really, really powerful. And it's an American
So again, thanks, Crystal, Marylise, Anselm, Avanel. I don't know if you all have any last thing you want to say quickly before we wrap up.
I just wanted to just answer what you said. The person said on Facebook.
Right.
I think, just to add to the answer, because I've given an answer already. Yeah. I think we associate East Indians with Hinduism. I think we have always done that. It has been passed on, just like we spoke before about things that are culturally ingrained.
Right.
So really and truly, you don't see much Indo gospel. You don't see much Indo dancing in worship. You'll see modern dancing, you'll see African dancing. Really and truly, we do not see. I don't think I've ever seen. I think I've seen it like once, but it's not something that's done often,
right,
because of the association that has been passed down. It's not a correct association, but that, once again, that's what we learned, and that's what was taught us. Like, this is not Christian. It's a different belief. So I think that's a very interesting question, and it's something we can't do because it's cultural.
Yeah.
And it's part of one of the many facets that makes up our Twin Island Republic. So it is something. It's an interesting topic to look at. It's interesting to see how we'll treat with that. They will be willing to do a certain style of music that's gospel. Because we have music, we have rap gospel, we have trap gospel, we have all of these things that are coming out to reach certain crowds and a certain audience.
Yeah, and they're being welcomed. They're being appreciated.
Correct.
Yeah.
They are.
So I just want to so in saying that, isn't that the same as I know some pastors, I heard a pastor say he's not going to incorporate that rap and trap and even the dancehall gospel to facilitate bringing in new Christians, because he's saying that's compromise. So I was thinking, isn't that the same as
that's why
I don't want to start no.
I guess that's why that's a whole other discussion, because culture is so vast, and as a community of people, what is our culture as a church? All of those discussions and stuff is just.
But it's not speaking not speaking to pastors, to Marylise. It's like a pastor should play this. We're just talking right now. This question is about the artist doing it.
Yeah.
Because pastors don't have to play it. But if the music is out there for people to listen to and access.
I hear a pastor singing, he not even listen. That's another day though.
That's a totally different music. Yeah, let me bring a music discussion. I'm all in for that.
And Slim Avanel, any final stuff?
Me,
well, again, I
raised the issue because sorry.
Go ahead, Anselm. Go ahead, yeah.
Go ahead, Avanel. Anyway, I was just gonna say I just raised it because I saw it as an issue, and most people actually in Trinidad and Tobago, while the world is discussing racism, you know, we kind of dress back a little bit. So that's why I raised the issue. So I want to thank Anthony for saying, do you want to do a live about it?
Yeah, no
I thought
problem.
about it. I was like, should I? Because let me just say one other thing. That sometimes as Christians, when things are said that we don't like, sometimes people want to pull their support and so on from you. And that's another reason why some people don't say anything. Because some people tend not to support you because they said certain things. You tend not to be on the pulpit again. You tend not to, people start to attack you in different ways. But I'm really glad that
people just do that.
Yeah, I'm glad that we had the opportunity to have this discussion. So thanks, Anthony.
No problem, bro. Avenel?
You know, right now I am going through a lot of emotions. There comes a time in your life where you have to draw the line in the sand. And I'm glad for my mother, who from small, she you know, told me about people like Rosa Parks from small, long before it was popular. You know, unfortunately, my mom was telling me about all those things before there was internet. And to make a stand, it will cost you something. And so I have made a stand against things like racism in the church, against classism, against pastors who feed off the flock, against churches who their whole focus is inward instead of outward. I'm making a stand against pastors whose main focus in this season is just to open their buildings when there is so many things that the church has been mandated to do that we can operate outside of the building. Micah 6:8, we can love justice, do mercy, walk humbly before our God. We don't know need a building for that. We can practice
You all here now? I lost that man.
Yeah, I lost that too.
I did too.
You're going on coming a little bit, Avi.
Pure religion.
Probably that'll be the
those you sick, those.
Avi? Avenel?
Affliction, we can do what Isaiah 50 put in the equation of the forsaking. And in taking a stand, it has people who feel that they have the game change. If you continue to speak like that, to stay silent, or the God who has provided will continue to stay in your comfort and be quiet, or you're going to speak. So it might be called spooky spiritual, it might be called ultra deep, it might be whatever it is, but you can't be a friend of the world and have a whole lot of the world in the church. You have to draw the line and you have to stand your gong in a spirit of humility, and God have your back. And just walk in love.
Thanks so much, Avenel. Just resell Avenel that you had to link you up with Amplia. He said the connection, you need an Amplia to link you up with the connection you need. And that's shameless plug by Jessie.
Been doing me well.
We need some faith. Give me a link to the group.
What I want, I just want to end the live with this. Well, not only to us, but to those of us on the Facebook live. Which I think is key is that a lot of times, sometimes when issues and stuff pops up, you know, we get people making comments, and I love people when they share their opinion, they share their concerns, and that kind of stuff, and it's important. But I also just want to encourage, especially believers, that when we're sharing our position, when we're sharing from what we believe as believers, that let's see how best we can premise it in the word. Because you see, by that now, it helps to authenticate our position. It helps to authenticate what we believe and why we believe what we believe. And nothing is wrong with connecting with passion. That's all well and good. You know, so again, thanks everyone. You all do enjoy the balance of your day. Facebook Live, thank you all so much. You all can share the live so that persons will at least be able to probably see what the discussion was about this morning. So yeah, it's a rainy one.
Page is on.
Well, oh, it's on my. I think I did a live on my page.
Yeah,
okay. I shared it on mine.
So some person did watch parties and stuff as well. So you could, any one of us here should be able to get it from. Yeah. So thanks, guys. Have a blessed one.
Thank you for having me.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Nice
and we do the Zoom wave. Everybody waves. Yeah.